Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's another fun-filled episode. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson, and good morning. It is early. It's even 7 a.m. yet. We're on Wednesday. It's hump day. Middle of your week. You're getting closer to that first real test for the football Hogs. It's a ranked Ole Miss team on the road. We know what Ole Miss did with the dart at quarterback last year. Now some question marks about health at quarterback and who's Arkansas going to face on Saturday. It's a road game in addition to being your first real stiff competition. You're 2-0. You've hung a half hundred on your first two woeful opponents, and now you really test yourselves. But we're here to talk about basketball. It's football season, but it's also basketball season. I say it all the time. Basketball is 365 days a year plus one on a leap year. Always something important going on, especially John Calipari program because of his level as a recruiter. This is the heat of the recruiting season for your next class as you try to build up to November, which isn't too far away, a couple of months away, that early signing period, and you're setting up visits, and you're also going on the road now as a coaching staff as of last week when that was permitted again. So there's a lot really going on, and we're here to talk about that. So thank you for joining me. We know Arkansas already had two top caliber, top five national rated five-star visitors, guards, both of those in the last couple of weekends. You also have an upcoming visit this weekend. We'll touch briefly on that just to remind everybody who's coming in. And is there a sneaky change of another visit where you'll have dueling visitors, two visitors this weekend? There's whispers out there. There are some whispers out there. All right, but let's hit what we know and what's just happened yesterday. Well, actually, let's start with Monday. We know the current recruiting period opened up last Wednesday, and basically Calipari and some of his staffers went on the road to recruit. You had a couple of days there because Calipari was getting back to Fayetteville, didn't use Friday as a travel day, got back late Thursday night. Friday, they had a official visitor coming in, Brandon McCoy Jr. We've talked about him, one of those two five-star top five rated guards that had visited the previous weekend, Caleb Holt, another guard, same size. So, Calipari back in Fayetteville Friday as that visitor came in on Friday, McCoy. And then on Monday, Calipari did not hit the road. The photo came out from the University of Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball program. He was courtside. You saw it from his back facing the court at the Performance Center, and you see Razorbacks in a photo. So it's still, you could tell they were doing conditioning drills, some kind of, sprint, situation where he's conducting practice. So he stayed with the team on Monday, did not get on the road. Arkansas did send assistant coaches on the road Monday. We'll get to that in a little bit. So it's not like Arkansas wasn't out and about, just not Calipari. And so we always pay close attention when he does. But Tuesday was the day we reported the last time we were on, which was Monday, a couple of days ago, that Calipari would be out to see one of Arkansas's priority targets. Has been for over a year. It's the big man, Erfan Diane, the 7'1" center, 285 pounds out of Iowa United Prep, originally from Guinea. We talked about his visit changes a couple of episodes ago and why it moved again and was out to where it is currently, September 19th to the 21st. So coming right up, not this weekend, but the following. And we told you a couple of days ago, Calipari, who had initially intended to go see Diane either Sunday or Monday coming into this week, that would actually move to Tuesday in the afternoon or early evening. That's what we told you. And that's exactly how it played out yesterday. Calipari and associate head coach Kenny Payne. And we know he's Arkansas's big man coach on campus, right? That's been his wheelhouse with Calipari for years. That's sort of his selling card. And in fact, he was on the road to Iowa United Prep with Calipari yesterday. The visit was set to start around 5:30 p.m. Central Time, so it was an evening visit. Cal and Payne spent at least 2 hours, maybe pushing 3 hours on that before getting back to Fayetteville. Now, they had another stop earlier in the day. We're going to talk about that too, but let's get through the Diane part because that was the main focus when you're talking about visitors for this 2026 class, what's upcoming, and the fact that Diane is expected to make a commitment announcement and sign early. He's not one of these top level guys that's going to maybe push it out to the spring. Things can change, but that's forever been the plan with him. So we've talked a lot about the fact that Houston, as the perceived front runner for his services, well, his guardian Alex Victor has actually told me, yeah, Houston's the team to beat. They're the ones that are in front, but Arkansas is right up there. down to 5 schools, all 5 he's got visits set up to. The first visit he'll take, Deanna, will be Kentucky this weekend. Then it's Arkansas the following weekend. Then it's Virginia the weekend after that. And then the other 2 schools that are in his final 5 are Indiana and Houston. And those get mid to late October visits. So he's going to push it all the way out to where you're getting really close to that November early signing period. But Calipari continues to prioritize him, not to the extent that Calipari made him the first stop on his tour last week when that was out on the East Coast. Guys like Jordan Smith Jr., who, by the way, will visit. The way the schedule is now, he's set to visit the top 5 rated 5-star guard out of Virginia, 6'2". He's supposed to visit now the same weekend as Deanna, September 19th to the 21st. But Calipari was out to see him first last week. Baba Ala Dotton, we've talked about all that. Then he skirted down to Florida, IMG Academy, went and hung with Cole Clower, Chase Foster. Then he stopped in Atlanta the next day, or Thursday was the stop at IMG Academy, the early morning, and then later Thursday in Atlanta to see Tay Kenny, who's got an Arkansas visit. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then he stopped in Little Rock on his way back to Fayetteville to see Deshaun J.J. Andrews, who's already committed to Arkansas, the 5-star wing at a Little Rock Christian Academy. So that was all last week. Deanna was not in that mix last week, but he was really the first 2026 guy of importance that already has a visit scheduled for Calipari to see this week. And again, he didn't go out Monday. It was yesterday. Alex Victor, the Guardian, told me that the meeting was very good. 2 words. I have more details about this meeting yesterday in terms of what was talked about, some of the points that Arkansas continues to stress in terms of, what the picture looks like for Deanna as a Razorback, what the vision is. I've been asked to not share that for now. Unfortunately, I'd planned on going through more than just the visit was very good, but that's all I've got for you right now. We'll see when more will be green lighted. I guess they want to keep that under wraps for now. Fine. So this apparently, though, was a very good visit. I got some photos from it. I put one of those as the thumbnail. You see Calipari in the background in focus, and you see Arafat Deanna kind of next to him, but a little bit closer to the camera, kind of out of focus. Interesting photo, and courtesy of the photographer at Iowa United Prep. So I got a few of those photos. I tweeted some of those out last night on the heels of that visit, and again included my favorite one of the group so far that I've seen in the thumbnail for this very segment on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. By the way, thanks for joining us. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't done already. It helps us out. We appreciate that. So Arkansas continues to pursue. Again, Houston, the team to beat. Kelvin Sampson, they'll be the team to beat in December. We've got some schedule updates, and we're going to talk about Kelvin Sampson and Houston here in this segment. But for now, we've said so much about Downey going back for a long time. Back in May, we were the first to tell you guys that this would be a priority recruit for Arkansas. Out on the Adidas circuit, all the focus was on that first live eval session when Calipari and Chin Coleman were in Memphis, where I was for Nike EYBL. Deanna playing on the Adidas circuit. Chuck Martin, the assistant, again out to courtside for every one of his games. And then eventually in July, Calipari got to go see him play multiple times. This is Calipari at least his second time, by the way, on the campus of Iowa United Prep. We reported back last year when Calipari went there to see Deanna as well. Good morning. Good morning. Who do I feel is good about Calipari landing? More than just J.J. Andrews, and we've talked about it a lot. I think Arkansas, with a wide enough net cast on some of these 5-star players, whether they're guards, backcourt guys, wings, then the front court, some of those players, Deanna being one, obviously the front court at 7'1", very versatile, skilled guy, by the way. But I think out of those groups, whether Arkansas is currently the leader, the perceived leader, whatever the pecking order, it's John Calipari, and so he's going to get at least one of some of these high-level guys when he's cast wide enough net to be bringing in 3 or 4 from a similar position group onto campus for visits. It's just how he rolls. At the end of the day, he says he wants to get 3 or 4 each class out of the high school ranks. He's got 1 off the board, so that narrows it down to 2 or 3 more. He might expand the total class this time if it's the right combination of players, I'm told, to as many as 5. We'll see if it really gets to that. Do I still do the football report? We pumped the brakes on that. We told you we were tinkering with some ideas on our football show. I did a few segments. I had one that was strictly football, one that couple more that I combined with basketball. And because we're working on some stuff to make it a better production, we decided to just continue to do basketball how we do it from now until we get that up and running, but to hold off on football until we get that up and running. And so for those who were like, hey, I thought he was going to be doing football, I haven't already been fired. We just decided to, from that task, we've just decided to pump the brakes on that and hold off until we ramp some things up with our full on production. So, what you get here is the down and dirty guerrilla style, report for basketball, which the content and information is fine. We'd like to do a lot better with presentation and production, be able to use graphics, video highlights, bring in guests remotely, those kinds of things. So we're working on that stuff. Thank you for the question. Appreciate that. But let's get back to recruiting. Deontay would be a great addition to the front line. Calipari really hasn't, when you look at his high school recruiting so far at Arkansas, and the guys that he targets early, the high-level, five-star kind of guys, the highly coveted guys, the NIL babies, really has not landed that first frontline guy yet. Yes, Paulo Samito in the spring out of the high school ranks, an international player, played at West Oaks Prep, I guess, last year, so he counts as a high school player. Ended up getting in the high school rankings, top 50 player, but we're not, even though he's a 4-5 and counts as a frontline guy, it's not what we're talking about here. So could Deontay or some others at Arkansas's recruiting fit that bill? Of course. So we'll see. Again, Arkansas's got some catching up to do if you believe the Guardian, Alex Victor. You always hope stuff like that's a smokescreen, and Arkansas's really in the command. But Victor's told me Arkansas is going to have a chance to win this, and they're right up there. And stops like yesterday with Calipari and Kenny Payne. Kenny Payne's been the lead recruiter for Deontay, and it makes sense. Again, he's Arkansas's big man coaching guru. All right. And we told you a couple episodes ago, the original plan on the September 12th through 14th visit date for Deontay, when it was to pair up with Abdou Toure, the 6'5" wing, also from Guinea. They were teammates in FIBA international play, playing for the junior national team for Guinea. And that's the connection and why they were going to simultaneously have those visits. Well, Toure is still set up to visit this weekend. And again, Deontay's visit moved out a week to September 19th to the 21st, now paired up again with Jordan Smith Jr. And the whole reason for that was one of the Guinea junior national coaches, not sure if he's still, what all his affiliations are in the international coaching, but the idea was to bring him and Coach Cass, Kasse, bring him in. He's going to be part of the entourage for Deontay on his visit. And he had a scheduling conflict the weekend of the 12th to the 14th. That's why it moved out. Toure couldn't also move to the 19th to the 21st because I don't think anybody was going to be okay with having 3 official visitors on the same weekend. You could do it, but you're kind of spreading yourself thin on the quality of the visit and the time you want to spend if you go more than 2. So I get it. So we're just kind of in a nutshell re-explaining what we did in the last segment we came on, gave you intel about these visits, why visit dates move around. A lot of people think Deontay moved his Arkansas visit to accommodate his upcoming weekend visit for Kentucky. Well, we dispelled that, although that's the truth that's been delivered to me. So it's someone else's truth, what I've told you, and I believe it, but that's what I reported. I can only report what I know and what I'm told. All right, we are nearly 14 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Calipari and Payne did not start at Iowa United Prep. That visit started at 5:30, so they got there just before the visit. And they had another stop, at least one area that they stopped at. How many stops they made within that area, I'm not sure about. Was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 3? Was it 4? How much time did they have to do that? I mean, if I had to guess, I would say no more than 2 players they might have gone out to see, but maybe they did. But there's some question marks about exactly who they did see, at least as of now. Have not been able to determine exactly who they saw, but they went to the Dallas-Fort Worth area earlier on Tuesday, and which brings to mind several players immediately. Because we know in class of 2027, one of the things I've talked about when we knew they were going to go out on the road, I'm like, look for Calipari and his staff members to focus initially on guys that are already set up for visits, which they've done. We just went through a lot of the names, most of the names, in the 2026 class, because that's more of an urgency. but they're not going to shortchange guys that are the future in their recruiting to the next classes like 2027. Marcus Spears Jr., Arkansas has been involved with him courtside to watch him play. He's in the Dallas Fort Worth area playing at Dynamic Prep, which is an up and coming independent school, really a good program. Yeah, they did see the twins. I'm going to get into that, but it wasn't Calipari. That wasn't Calipari. And that was on Monday, actually. That was assistant coach Chuck Martin and the younger Calipari, Brad Calipari. But John Calipari, the head hog, the hog father, was in DFW earlier on Tuesday. And again, Marcus Spears Jr., 6'8" forward, the number one player in the class of 2027, the highest rated five-star, could have been, and is my best guess as to who he probably went to see on Tuesday before going out to Iowa United Prep later in the day. Could he have seen more than that? Melissa, Texas, it's that Dallas-Fort Worth footprint. That's where class of 2026, top 20 rated five-star, Austin Gooseby, a 6'5" guard. That's where he plays. That's in that area. Another class of 2026, top 20 rated five-star, Bryson Howard, a 6'5" small forward wing in Frisco. So what's interesting about those two, the last two class of 2026 is, yeah, they're top 20 rated five stars, but they've really not been on Arkansas's public recruiting radar at all. And with the fact that you've got all these other players that you've already had on campus, which could be telling if you're going out to see two guys that are five-star size-wise, similar to Caleb Holt and to Brandon McCoy Jr. If you're going out to see them on Tuesday, maybe that says something about the visits you have. But you got upcoming guard visits from that class. And I just think, although it's possible, because I can't rule it out because haven't narrowed it down to exactly who Calipari was out to see, John, the head hog, along with Payne yesterday. You have to rule that in as possibilities. Those are guys that if I had to move around the board, another one, back to class of 2027, a 6'8" forward, Dawson Batee, plays at Dallas St. Mark's. If you remember, the previous coaching staff at Arkansas, Eric Patrick Musselman, EPM, they were down at Dallas St. Mark's all the time for Harrison Ingram, a five-star that ended up, I think, where did he start at? I think he began his career at Stanford, was originally where he was. And they ended up at North Carolina, and Arkansas played against him in the Bahamas a couple of years ago in Musselman's final season. But Dallas St. Mark's, so Dawson Batee, ranked 14th in the class of 2027, a 6'8" forward, a five-star. So that's just a quartet of players that it's a possibility that Calipari and Payne had stopped by to see. And my best money is on the number one player in class of 2027. Again, Marcus Spears Jr. I think it's less likely Gooseby and Howard are onto Arkansas's radar this late, although it's possible. And if that's possible, and if that's what happened, it makes you start to question where are things going with some of these other guys that they've been recruiting for well over a year. When you talk Caleb Holt, Brandon McCoy Jr., and then, guys that are still expected to come in later, not exactly the same positionally. But again, you're taking only 3 or 4, maybe 5. And so if you're going to maybe 5, maybe you're still kicking the tires on some guys that we haven't heard a whole lot about as it relates to Arkansas's recruiting. Certainly Gooseby and Howard, I've heard a lot about and watched those guys play in person. But as far as Arkansas's recruiting radar, that would be interesting if that's the case. I'm not trying to start something here and suggest that's what happened. I'm saying I leave it open as a possibility, not knowing exactly what happened yesterday. All right, let's wrap up and move on again. Abdou Toure, the 6'5" wing, national top 30, has been a composite 5-star, has slipped a little bit, now a composite 4-star, but still top 30 player, explosive wing. We know he was on Arkansas's campus last October for the LSU game, along with an official visitor and another unofficial visitor at the time. So it'll be his second time back on campus. The upcoming visit is this weekend, originally scheduled to coincide with Erfan Diane. Now, Toure has the weekend to himself as an official visitor. Or does he? There are some rumors, some whispers going around that because Tay Kenny, who we talked about on our last time on, we mentioned this, that he canceled upcoming visits to Texas, who recruited the hell out of him. Texas really thought they had a shot. And Miami, he canceled visits to those two schools for this weekend and the following weekend, with his Arkansas visit, which has been out there for the longest, being the last of his visits. That's still the case. But the two preceding it, again, Texas, Miami, he canceled. So we talked about that. And the 26th to 28th, Arkansas football hosts Notre Dame. That's the weekend he's been earmarked for the longest to come for his OV to Arkansas. And now there's whispers that maybe because he's canceled the other two, that they'll sneak him in this weekend, the same weekend they're going to host Abdou Toure. I've not been able to confirm that. I don't know if there's any true legs to that. But there are some things that have stirred a little bit about that. So if that happens, we talked about it here and you're not going to be surprised. As of now, I'm in the camp that it's the 26th to the 28th because that's what I know and have confirmed. The other part, again, is maybe just rumor, maybe just a thin whisper. People jump into conclusions because the other two visits were canceled. And so you just fast track things. Calipari was out to see him again last Thursday. We talked about it at the time. We brought that up again today. Tay Kenny, the 6'2 guard from Newport, Kentucky, been a Cal recruit when Cal was still the head coach at Kentucky. The first offer, I reported this, the first offer that I'm aware of in class of 2026, extended by Calipari as Arkansas's head coach shortly after he took the job. I mean, well in advance of when he offered J.J. Andrews and some of the other guys out of that class. So something to mull over. But could Tay Kenny be sneaking in for a visit this weekend along with the Abdou Toure? Then you would have back-to-back weekends with double visitors, right? Because following weekend, September 19th through the 21st, again, Eric Fandiani, Jordan Smith Jr. If you looked at Calipari's class of 2025 recruiting a year ago, everybody had their own official visit weekend. They weren't doubling up, even though they brought along some unofficial visitors from other classes. And they brought in Darius Acuff Jr., who'd already had his Arkansas official visit back in May of 2024, had already committed. He was brought in as basically a recruiter. So he wasn't sharing an OV weekend with anybody in that sense. So we're about to see at least one of those, maybe two, if Tay Kenny's truly shuffling the deck and that visit happened sooner. Here we are on Wednesday. The Brandon McCoy visit was quiet. We actually came on to the segment midweek and finally said, look, I'm just going to tell you he's coming in this weekend. And then it went public after he was already on campus on Friday when it went splashing on Twitter. It went public that way. I've made it public on this show a couple of days prior to that, but you get the picture. The Caleb Holt visit happened pretty much in a whirlwind. We told you for weeks that it was coming. It had been finalized. And then, boom, it was announced the same week that he actually took it. So if things are moving around, we might not find out until the last second that it's been, we might get it confirmed when they're already on campus again that it's hit. Maybe sooner. And that's our goal here, is to find out, confirm it, and then come back and tell you for sure if that visit date for Tay Kenny has changed or not. Let's move around the board. Again, Calipari, the head hog, and Payne out yesterday, but on Monday, Arkansas was on the road. Chuck Martin, assistant coach, was back at Archbishop Stepinac in West Plains, New York. It's in that New York City footprint. It's basically the Big Apple. And that's where Boogie Flan, that's where he played. And that's where the Ratliff twins, Adonis and Darius, both top 100 rated 4-star guys, kind of versatile, thinly built, 7-footer, they're 6'11", 7 foot, somewhere in that range. Out of shoes, they might be 6'10" and a half. I don't know. I've seen them in person. I didn't get to see them as much in the Nike EYBL session in Memphis back in May because there were games where they were in street clothes and didn't participate. But Arkansas has been recruiting them for a while now. They don't hold Arkansas offers. Martin was out to see them on April 30th of this year at Stepinac, and that was the last day of the live recruiting period for the previous recruiting cycle. The current one just opened up September 3rd, and it runs through April 30th of 2026. So between April 30th of this year and then last week, the first week that the live recruiting period opened up, Martin was out to see those guys. And so he's been out for a third time now, the second time within the last few days, not even a full week, to see the Ratliff twins. And their dad, Theo Ratliff, we've talked about it back in April when we talked about that first stop for Martin. Theo Ratliff, an all-pro guy, defensive whiz, shot blocker, 6'10", 6'11" guy that played many years in the NBA, played with Allen Iverson and the Sixers. I think some of you may remember Theo Ratliff, but it's his boys. He had a daughter that played basketball at the University of Arkansas, so their sister, back in the day, a few years back, played at Arkansas. So they're, more than just ties to this staff. Chuck Martin, New York City, the New York area, those are his stomping grounds. He's kind of Arkansas's East Coast guy in terms of, being the lead guy for a lot of the, Northeast especially. But it wasn't just Martin who was out to see those guys again. He was accompanied by Brad Calipari, the Hog father's son. We know that it's his. He's been on the staff as an assistant coach, but also he's Arkansas. He's in charge of Arkansas's player development. That's one of his roles. But he was out with Martin to see the Ratliff twins. So the next thing, so this was on Monday. The next thing we keep an eye on is, do these guys at some point get an offer from Arkansas? Because that will be the key. They're class of 2026 guys, so the upcoming class. It's kind of one of those 2-for-1 things probably. And we've seen twins, how that, we've seen, the twin factor in action on Arkansas rosters in recent years. And so is this, a possibility for something like that? Well, sure, it's a possibility if you keep going back and seeing these guys. But the key is going to be, again, do they actually get to a point where they offer these guys? The coaching staff at Stepanak did send me a message the other day just to confirm those guys were there. I heard they were going, but they sent me a message saying, New York legend Chuck Martin and Brad were there to see those guys. I like that New York City legend Chuck Martin, because that's, up in that area, he's well known. But we'll see where this goes. Again, if it becomes a deal where these guys get scholarship offers, you're going to see them probably then linked to a visit. They're not going to offer these guys this late without prioritizing them and bringing those guys in for visits. So let's keep an eye on that as we continue to monitor what's going on with Erfan Diane. Does Arkansas have a lot? It sounds like they're right there, but maybe not in the lead. When you look at guys like Mika Miernan, whose recruitment's been kind of wild and quiet at the same time, a lot of question marks there. Baba Aladdin, who's tentatively scheduled to come in and visit Arkansas in late October. Chase Foster, I'm told the visit's finalized, but we don't know the dates. Those haven't been reported, and you wonder, are they kind of keeping that back burner to see what else plays out? Those are, because I don't know the dates on that one, by the way. I just know I've been told they're finalized. So there's a lot of frontline options and a lot of ways to go, and that's why you cast a wide enough net with guys that you think can help you, so that you can get to where you need to be, where you want to be in your high school class. Last year, Arkansas went into the spring sign or the early signing period and had 3 players. Right now, they've got 1 committed who's going to go early for sure, and that's J.J. Andrews. All right, let's move around the board a little bit. Let's talk about some other stuff. We hit a lot there. We got you caught up on a lot of good stuff, I think. We always have intel for you. Real quick, before I get into scheduling stuff, let's throw in the fact that class of 2028, the youngest player Calipari claims that he's ever offered a scholarship to, it's an in-state guy, Anthony Spratt Jr., 6'6" wing out of Benton, helped the Panthers win their first ever state title last year in the 5A on a loaded team. Really good team that had some other Division I players in the starting lineup. So Spratt won a state title, had a big spring and summer playing on the Nike E15 circuit with Brad Bill Elite. And coaches like John Shire with Duke and Bruce Pearl with Auburn, John Calipari in Arkansas. Well, Calipari offered him a scholarship. We reported that first. It's been last month? I lose track of time. Maybe it's been 2 months. Seems like forever ago, but it wasn't. It was very recent. And we've been talking a lot about Anthony Spratt Jr., versatile guy, 3-level kind of guy offensively, already, again, 6'6" with good length, has good athleticism. Nice craft for a young player just coming off his freshman high school season. When you talk about him putting the ball on the deck, you run him off the 3 line, he's got dribble drive craft to go left or right, and he can pull up with little middies. He's got little floaters and runners. If and he's the kind of guy that as he continues to get stronger, because he's an above the rim finisher, we're going to see more and more of him putting dudes in the rim because he can get up and finish. So, one of the player comparisons that I heard, and I reported this here, this was intel a while back, came from the Team USA camp. Don Showalter, who's one of their directors, has been for years, and he was making comparisons of Anthony Spratt Jr. to Jason Tatum, also a Brad Bill Elite alum. We know what he did. He went to Duke, one of the top players in the world, arguably a guy that should be if he's not, and has been, but not every year, in the conversation for MVP. Won a title, helped Boston win a title 2 years ago, the Celtics. So made that player comparison. Well, it's interesting. I brought that up, Team USA, because I reported yesterday this was an update, but Spratt got an invite to Team USA Junior National Team Camp, Player Camp. The next one being in October. Those are typically held in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Sometimes they hold them. Some of their stuff they do are remote, like around the Final Four. They'll host some of their mini camps at the site of where the Final Four is being played around the same time. But typically it's in Colorado Springs. That's where the training center is. And that's where he's headed, October 9th through the 13th. Team USA, you're starting to see some of those invites to the top players around the country get splashed out on social media. We're the ones that broke and first reported Anthony Spratt Jr. off to Team USA Junior National. So that's another feather in his cap among many. You know, he took part in the prestigious TP3 Rising Stars Elite Camp for incoming high school sophomores and freshmen. That was a few weeks ago. He took an unofficial visit and did that pose with John Shire at Duke. I put that photo out because it was sent to me, and that's what we do. So we know some blue bloods are already involved, and we know the bluest of blue bloods in coaching. And he says Arkansas is a blue blood program. John Calipari says that. So the big blue blood with the big offer. And so Anthony Spratt Jr., as a reminder, does have that Arkansas offer. All right, 31 minutes in. Let's just get to some real quick hitters on scheduling. I put an article out yesterday, and we talked about it before that it looked like Arkansas's matchup with Houston that's still set for Saturday, December 20th, and was earmarked for the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. When we last talked about that game specifically, we said we were hearing rumblings that it's actually probably going to be played in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center, and that Rocco Miller, one of the national scheduling gurus who I talked to, checked on that and said, you know what, I think that's probably right. He goes, that's what I've heard. That's what's going to happen. And so we've never had an official public announcement about that game other than what's gotten out and Calipari talking about some of this stuff. But it finally formally got announced. I got a couple of press releases out or sent, and it will be played after all in Newark, New Jersey. Same day, Saturday, December 20th, same opponent, Houston. That didn't change. But it's the Prudential Center in Newark. So that Newark is a gateway city to the Big Apple. All that stuff's in a cluster. It's basically greater metropolitan area. And it's also known as Brick City because of the 19th century brick production in Newark, New Jersey. And I saw that city motto or that city nickname, and I thought, oh gosh, I've got so many question marks about Arkansas's three-point shooting. And if you remember, the last time Arkansas had a game that mattered out east in the East, what was it, Providence, and the regional against St. John's, it was a win, but those teams combined for the worst three-point shooting game ever. So I'm thinking, I hope this is not a harbinger of things to come for Arkansas. Maybe it's a harbinger for things to come for Houston or both teams, and you win in another ugly fest. You know, a game where everybody, you know, the team that can get to the rim and get to the free throw line wins. But Brick City, Newark, New Jersey, the Prudential Center, that is the home of the NHL's New Jersey Devils. It's also the home, I think, Seton Hall, the Big East, you know, Division I college basketball, high major conference and program. I think they play most of their home games there. They also have an on-campus facility where they play some games. So I'm not sure the mix exactly how many, if they play most of them at the Prudential Center or just some of them. But Seton Hall plays games there. Everybody remembers John Calipari in his hiatus after, you know, turning UMass into a power back in the day out of obscurity. He went and took the challenge. The NBA challenge, was head coach of the then New Jersey Nets, now the Brooklyn Nets, who play their home games at the Barclays Center, where this game was originally thought to be, the Arkansas-Houston game was originally thought to be set for. But the New Jersey Nets, when that was back in the late 90s for 4 years, and they played their games in East Rutherford, New Jersey. They didn't play in Newark. They played at the old Brendan Byrne Arena, and it took on corporate names like, I think, the Continental Airlines Arena and then the Izod Center. I think those were some more names that facility got, but that's where Calipari coached the NBA team there. And then later, we know that the Nets moved from New Jersey to Brooklyn, you know, again, all that's in a cluster, the same area, and started playing their games at the Barclays Center. So, but before that, after Calipari had left, they did actually start playing home games for 3 seasons as the New Jersey Nets at the Prudential Center. So the Nets did eventually play there as the New Jersey Nets, but only for 3 seasons before the team moved to Brooklyn and after Calipari had already left. So too much information, trivia you don't care about? Well, Calipari's an East Coast guy. He said last year when Arkansas had that game against Michigan at Madison Square Garden and won that game, but Calipari said, we're going to do this again next year. I want to play up here again. He's an East Coast guy, spent a lot of time with big games, big stage games, whether he was coaching at Kentucky, probably did some when he was at Memphis. I'd have to go back and look. Certainly did when he was at UMass. But those East Coast matchups and the excitement that these big stage games bring, basketball's always been big out in that part of the country. It makes sense, and Arkansas is back. He said that he wanted them back, and he's got them back. Barclays Center, Prudential Center, Big Apple, Brick City. What's in a name? What's in a location? It's all basically the same footprint. All right, one more scheduling nugget before I jump out of here. Over 35 minutes in. I'm Kevin McPherson. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. We reported a while back in concert with Rocco Miller helping us that Arkansas would have a 3-team, with Arkansas being one of the teams, 3-team multi-team event, MTE. It's how you get your full schedule to a full 31 games instead of 30. It's how you get your non-conference schedule to a full 13 games and not 12. You have to have a multi-team event, which could be going and playing in Maui or some other tournament where you get 3 games in 3 days kind of thing. Cal doesn't like to do that. So what he does is, and he did it last year, it was a 4-team MTE, and you played 3 opponents. And the last year it was Illinois, Little Rock, and Maryland Eastern Shore. This year it's a 3-team MTE, Arkansas, again, being one of them, playing 2 opponents, hosting both at Bud Walton Arena. We reported those to you as being Winthrop and Jackson State. And they would be late November games. We didn't have dates, but late November games as a lead up to Arkansas's game in Chicago on Thanksgiving Day against Duke, which is a mega matchup. Duke and Arkansas are not tied to the same MTEs this time like Arkansas and Illinois were last year. We explained all of that, but that Arkansas would host these 2 games as a lead up in late November to that November 27th Thanksgiving Day game against Duke. All right, Winthrop and Jackson State. So Jackson State earlier in the week put out its non-conference schedule. And there's Arkansas. You see the Razorback logo with a November 21 date. So now we know the playing date for that game. That's a Friday, November 21st. And again, it's similar to how the MTE worked last year. Last year, Arkansas, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, played Little Rock on the Friday prior to the following Thursday, which was Thanksgiving Day in Illinois. They played Little Rock on Friday. And then on Monday, they played Maryland Eastern Shore. And then later on Feast Week, they played Illinois. Well, they're playing Jackson State on Friday the 21st. And so there's still not a date that I've seen for Winthrop just yet as part of that MTE. But Jackson State, November 21st, it's the second SWAC team that Arkansas that we know about in the non-conference. We know 11 of the 13 games. The first being Southern. Arkansas opens with Southern on November 3rd. That's the season opener for all of college basketball. So Jackson State on November 21st, it's a Friday. Could Arkansas then on the 24th, which is the Monday, could that end up being the day that Arkansas plays Winthrop? Well, on Sunday, November 23rd, that's when Winthrop plays Jackson State as part of this MTE at Jackson State. It's slated for Jackson, Mississippi. So that's not far. It's in the footprint to get to Arkansas. Could Arkansas be playing them the following day on Monday or maybe on a Tuesday? And because we know Winthrop's going to play at Bud Walton Arena the same as Jackson State as part of this MTE. All right, that's everything we got today so far. It'll be a busy day. Another big dental appointment for me at 9 o'clock. Am I nervous? Yeah, a little bit, but I'll push through. We've got, if I have to come live with a numb mouth because something breaks that's important and you can barely understand me, that's just how it's going to be. I can't learn sign language between now and then, and you probably can't either if you don't know it. So we'll do the best that we can. We maybe write it down on paper and flash notes up on the screen, something like that. Until next time, I've enjoyed this. Appreciate all of you. Be great in all your endeavors. Have a great day. Probably be back on tomorrow, if not later today. Until then, take care of yourselves. See you soon.